Today we're going to talk about battery life. A lot about battery life. Like, this whole video is going to be about battery life. So if you're not here for that, watch a different video. But if you are here for that, let's go. Well, hey there, welcome back. I'm Dave from Chase the Summit, and in this video today, we're going to talk about battery life on the brand new Apple Watch Ultra, because this seems to be a topic that's quite controversial in the comments and even in YouTube videos out there. People really want to know what kind of battery life you can expect from the new Apple Watch Ultra, and the specs on the Apple website aren't very straightforward. So Apple sent me an Ultra early for the purpose of testing and making a review video, so I've had this watch for a few weeks, and during that time, I've taken it out on basically every run every day between distances from 5 miles to 20 miles, in runs that were like 30 minutes in duration, all the way up to runs that were 4 hours in duration. And through that time, I've tried changing settings and doing different things to see what kind of battery life I can get from the Apple Watch Ultra. So in this video, I'm going to talk about all these different scenarios that I've compiled and taken notes on, and then we'll go through each one and I'll try to explain what kind of battery life you can expect from this watch. Before I talk about my use case, I want to talk about what Apple claims on paper. On their website, on the specs, they say that you can get up to 36 hours of use with the Apple Watch, just taking it out of the box, turning it on, and putting it on your wrist. Apple also says that you can get up to 18 hours of use if you use the watch in cellular mode without your phone around. So if you don't know, what happens when you have your Apple Watch Ultra near your phone is it actually reverts to your phone's connection for all of its internet connectivity. But if you don't have your phone around or your phone's turned off, for instance, when you're on a run or a hike or something, it uses built-in cellular connection. In that case, it uses a lot more energy. So when you're using the built-in cellular connection and it's always on, you'll get up to about 18 hours of use in that mode. Also, keep in mind that these numbers, 18 and 36 hours, are based on Apple's theoretical usage. So that's some amount of text messaging and phone calls and checking your Instagram, etc. Just their basic generic usage, and everybody's usage is going to vary. And the reason why it's so hard to talk about battery life on the Apple Watch Ultra, or any Apple Watch for that matter, is because these are basically iPhones strapped to your wrist. These are very powerful devices. Quick interruption, if you're finding this video helpful or fun or anything, please consider giving me a thumbs up and subscribing down below so you don't miss more videos from me in the future. Also, if you're planning on picking up an Apple Watch Ultra, or any Apple Watch for that matter, check out the links in the description down below because those help support my channel, and I'd really appreciate that. Okay, back to the video. Let's dive right into the big one. That's going to be standby time in smartwatch mode. When you're just using this watch as an everyday device, you're going to work with it, you're sleeping with it, that kind of situation. So also keep in mind that these numbers I'm about to throw at you are also including being near my phone. So I'm not using the internal cellular device inside the Apple Watch Ultra. And the first scenario I'm going to talk about is out of the box settings, which for me was cellular turned on, again being near my phone, and always on display turned off. And all of the other settings were set to default in terms of brightness and sensors and things like that. Everything was set to default. And in this mode, I lost about 1.9% per hour, which actually equates out to almost 50 hours of casual use. Moving right along, scenario number 2 is turning off the cellular feature on the Apple Watch Ultra, but leaving Bluetooth and Wi-Fi on and always on display turned off. Also, no GPS usage, and being near my phone. And in this mode, I lost about 1.45% per hour, which equates out to about 70 hours of usage, which is kind of crazy given that the specs on this watch for 36 hours. So you can see the big divide here and why it's so confusing when you're trying to nail down battery life on the Apple Watch Ultra. Oh cool, I just closed my rings by waving my watch around in this video. Okay, moving right into scenario number 3, which is going to be low power mode on the Apple Watch Ultra. And to get there, you swipe up from the bottom of the screen, you go and click on your battery icon there, and then there's a little toggle down here for low power mode. And if I click on that, it tells you what's going on. It says save battery life by turning off always on display and limiting sensors, as well as the cellular connection and Wi-Fi connection of your Apple Watch Ultra. Also down at the bottom here, it says this mode will turn off your background heart rate measurement and blood oxygen measurement. So you do make some sacrifices by going into low power mode. And in my testing so far, I've noticed that if I get a text message on my phone, it takes a few seconds before it shows up on the watch. It's not instant like it usually is, because I think they're just occasionally checking for new stuff instead of like keeping an active connection between the phone and watch. So in low power mode, you're gonna be shocked by this. I lost about 1.2% per hour, which equals about 80 hours of use potentially. That's a lot of use coming out of the Apple Watch Ultra. Okay, final scenario for the standby or smartwatch mode is going to be the worst case scenario, which is cellular turned on and turning my phone off. So I am leveraging the cellular connection built into the watch. My phone is turned off. I can't rely on that at all. And all the connectivity is going through the watch itself. And to make it even worse, to really kill the battery, I also had always on display turned on. And in this mode, I lost about 5% per hour, which came out to about 20 hours of use. That's actually better than I thought, and it's right in line with what Apple states on their specs in terms of battery life with that 18-hour mark in terms of the cellular connection. At this point, I became very curious about the impacts of the always on display on battery life, and I was kind of shocked by my findings. So in that same cellular on phone off situation, so I'm using the connection in the watch, I also turned the always on display off. And in that mode, I lost the same 5% per hour, and I got the same close to 20 hours of use. It's very similar. It seems like the always on display on the Apple Watch Ultra is pretty efficient, and it's not taking a huge toll in terms of battery life, which I was kind of surprised about. Moving right along into the next category I want to talk about when it comes to battery life is going to be GPS battery life. When you're out on a run or a ride, using the GPS positioning on the watch, the heart rate sensor, the barometer, everything's turned on and you're out there doing an activity, that's when you burn a lot of battery, and that's what I want to talk about now. Okay, scenario number one with GPS battery life is going to be out of the box settings, which for me was always on display off, cellular turned on, and having my phone with me. So I was carrying my phone during the run. With these settings, I lost 8% per hour. So that equals about 12 hours of use, which is right in line with Apple's spec on their website. They say you can get about 12 hours of use with out of the box settings. So again, I was curious about that always on display. So I tried the same settings. I had GPS turned on, cellular turned on, all default settings, but always on display turned on. And with that, I lost about 9% per hour, which would lead to about 11 hours of use. So again, not a huge impact from that always on display. So you're only losing about an hour of use in a GPS activity if you leave that on. Scenario number three is going to be going for a run with the Apple Watch Ultra, default settings, always on display turned off, but listening to music directly from the watch. Now, here's a big thing with the Apple Watch Ultra. If you download the music to the watch's storage, you can do this with Spotify or Apple Podcast, it takes much less battery life to play that back while you're out on your run than it would if you were using it from the cloud, if you were using the cellular connection to get that music to your watch to play it back into your earbuds. So with that, GPS, music pre-downloaded to the watch, all default settings, I was losing about 12% per hour. So 12% per hour playing back music pre-downloaded to the watch would mean about 8 to 9 hours of use. I think it would vary depending on other settings, but I'd say 8 hours of use is probably reasonable. And then on the flip side, when I went for a run without my phone, left my phone at home, used the cellular connection, and I played back a podcast to my earbuds using the cellular connection without downloading it to the watch first, that's where I took the biggest hit, and I lost 30% per hour. That's a lot. So if you're streaming music from the internet to the watch into your earbuds, you can expect to lose about 30% per hour if you don't pre-download it to the watch. So with that, I would say always try to pre-download your music unless you're just going for a 5K or something like that and you don't need a whole lot of battery life, then it's probably fine, but it's something to keep in mind for sure. In the final scenario I want to talk about in terms of battery life in GPS mode is using low power mode in GPS mode. So that same low power setting also affects GPS activities. Low power mode on the Apple Watch Ultra is a little bit misleading, I think. It's kind of confusing because if you use it in standby mode, you lose some sensors. So in standby mode, smartwatch mode, you lose the heart rate sensor on the back of the watch. However, if you use low power mode in a GPS activity, you still get to use that heart rate sensor on the back of the watch and you still get full accuracy. So in my testing with low power mode in a GPS activity, I was losing about 6% per hour, which would lead to about 17 hours of estimated use in full GPS and heart rate accuracy. There was no sacrifices when it came to accuracy in GPS or heart rate. And finally, I want to talk about one thing we don't have on the Apple Watch Ultra yet, and that's the power optimization mode that's coming later this fall. Apple says they're going to release a low power or optimized power mode for the Apple Watch Ultra that will give you up to 60 hours of use in a GPS activity with GPS and heart rate. However, when I asked Apple about this new optimized power mode and what you give up to get it, they did tell me that you'll get reduced accuracy when it comes to GPS and heart rate. What they told me is that the heart rate sensor will get a sample every 1 minute, and the GPS position will be updated every 2 minutes, and that's just for the sake of battery life. They also said that they're going to use some AI and algorithms to try to fill in the gaps by using Apple Maps data, so the GPS position might be better than you'd think by getting a sample every 2 minutes, but time will tell because we don't have it yet. I'm excited to test it out because 60 hours of use is plenty enough to do a 100-mile ultramarathon, a multi-day event, go camping and backpacking for a couple of days. That's really impressive, and if it actually works and it's usable, that'd be pretty cool, but something tells me it's going to come with some sacrifices. Okay, now that I've thrown all this information at you and given you all the numbers and made this very complicated, I want to mention a couple of things. This is just my use case and what I've experienced while using the Apple Watch Ultra for a few weeks. I haven't had it for a very long time, but this is what I've learned so far. And your numbers may vary from my numbers. These watches are so variable. If you change your brightness, you're going to get less battery life. If you turn down your brightness, you'll get more battery life. So I'm just sharing my experience so far. I'm rambling on here, but what I'm trying to get at is to take this information with a grain of salt. This is just my experience over the past few weeks. Yours may vary from this. Okay, final thoughts on the battery life on the Apple Watch Ultra. In my experience using it for the past few weeks, well, I think it's pretty good, but it's really tricky for me because my use case in my history, I've mainly used a sport watch like a Garmin or a Coros or a Suunto, and some of those watches can last over a month on a single charge. The Apple Watch Ultra is going to get you 2 days typically, in my use at least, and that's just not a lot. However, if you zoom out a little bit and you actually use the Apple Watch Ultra for a few days and you experience it and what all the things it can do, like reading your text messages and taking phone calls and voice memos and displaying pictures and looking through your Apple podcasts, it does so much. This thing's a powerhouse of a watch. And because of that, you kind of get why it only lasts for a couple of days on a single charge. What I'm trying to get at here is that a couple of days of battery life on the Apple Watch Ultra seems acceptable for all of its capabilities. However, if you are someone who is used to a sports watch, it will take some adjusting to get used to that charge cycle. You're gonna be going to bed the next day and realize your battery's dead. Another thing that's a bit of a struggle for me is that if I do want to go on a really long GPS activity, 17 hours of use is probably not enough, but I could charge it midway, but that's not something I really want to go back to because that's what I did years ago, and it was always a headache to have power banks in my backpack or a drop bag or something. Yeah, it's just something I don't want to deal with anymore. But all of this will really boil down to your use case and what kind of battery life you need. So yeah, that's kind of it. That's been my experience with the Apple Watch Ultra and its battery life so far. I'm sure I'll have different thoughts about this down the road, but that's it for now. And I want to hear from you. Do you have an Apple Watch Ultra or an Apple Watch Series 8 or SE? Drop down into the comments down below and let me know what kind of battery life you're getting because I'd love to hear from you. If you enjoyed this video or you found it helpful or educational or anything, please consider giving me a thumbs up and subscribing down below because that really helps out my channel, helps it grow, and I'm trying to hit 100,000 subscribers here. I don't know if I'll ever get there, but if you hit that button, it helps me out. Also, if you're in the market for an Apple Watch Ultra, or an Apple Watch Series 8 or SE or any other watch out there, check out the links in the description down below because those also support my channel and they don't cost you anything, so you might as well use them. And with that, I think I'm done. Yeah, I'm done now. Bye.